Good morning. Today, I would like to speak about the phrase, we've heard it before, don't throw out the baby with the bathwater. And that saying is actually derived from an old German proverb. It goes back to the 1500s. And what it's telling us is, don't reject it all. Don't reject it in its entirety, because if you do, you run the risk of losing the good or the valuable part right along with the undesirable or the unwanted part. So this proverb of don't throw out the baby with the bathwater is giving us a warning to just a little bit of caution, to be a little bit more discriminating and a little bit more selective when you're making your choices and making decision-making in life. Recently, I was watching a movie, again, that I've seen before, and it's about a 50-year-old movie. And this movie gave us some really great, memorable songs. And I want to share with you. Here's the opening song of the movie. And so take a listen and see if you just might be able to name that tune. Thank you. And that's our Broadway show for today. Got an idea? Everybody recognize that? What is it?
Fiddler on the Roof.
Yeah, Fiddler on the Roof, opening song, Tradition. So in the movie, it is set in a Russian village around the year, it's before World War I, it's around 1905. And the main character, Tevye, he's a poor Jew. And he's telling the audience at the beginning of this, each of us is trying to keep our balance as we scratch out a living without falling and breaking our neck. He says, we rely upon tradition. Without our traditions, our lives would be as shaky, as unsteady as a fiddler on the roof. So the storyline revolves around that push-pull of clinging to or relying heavily upon past traditions. And in this movie, it's concerning his faith and his family. All the while, Tevye is being thrust into the modern world of rapid change. Now, Tevye's not happy with letting go of these established beliefs and customs and traditions because they've served him well through the years. They've provided a sense of comfort, a sense of security. There's no need to think. There's no need to choose. There's no need to adjust or to change. We've always done it that way. End of story. Well, it's during the performance of Tevye's fatherly duty to marry off his three eldest daughters that these past rules get questioned time and time again. And during that long-held tradition of enlisting the service of the village matchmaker, another song, matchmaker, matchmaker, make me a match. Well, it's then that Tevye breaks with tradition, and he begrudgingly allows each of his daughters to select her own match, her own future husband, based on love rather than security, based on, well, he's a pious Jew, or he's the butcher. He's 62, but it's okay. What me worry? In life, we may have noticed that sometimes that pendulum swings from here completely in the opposite direction. And unlike that, that's the way we've always done it. Instead, we get out with the old and in with the new. This life perspective believes that in order for us to move forward, to advance, we must let go of, we must remove, we must toss out, we must purge the past. Whether it be things, attitudes, habits, or customs. The old thing is no longer useful or relevant, and it must be replaced with something new and improved. The extreme edge of the pendulum over here, of this life perspective, is tear it all down, break the mold. Let's get back to scratch. In the early 20th century, a gentleman by the name of G.K. Chesterton, he was a British journalist, he was considered a critical thinker, and a formidable debater. He was also a defender of Christianity. And he was the author of a series of detective stories about Father Brown, a crime-solving Catholic priest. Well, this gentleman described a principle that's come to be known as Chesterton's fence. And this principle says, before you tear down a fence, understand why it was put there in the first place. It's been said that this was actually one of President John F. Kennedy's favorite sayings, and he used this in his decision-making processes. Well, Chesterton's fence is a simple rule that advises us to never destroy a fence, change a rule, or do away with a tradition until we understand its original purpose. Fences, rules, customs, traditions all came about for a reason. The people who built them weren't stupid. They didn't do it in a fit of madness. They didn't erect the fence deliberately trying to make life difficult for others. They didn't do it just for the fun of it. They had some reason for thinking that it served a purpose and it would be good for somebody or something. The fence went up for a reason, and it can't come down without something taking its place or removing the need for it in the first place. We are being, again, advised to consider the consequence or consequences of tearing it down. Is everything about this fence beyond repair? Beyond improvement? Could it be that it just needs some modification or some fortification? Last August, my husband Mark and I, we attended Centers for Spiritual Living's summer retreat at a Asilomar conference, and that's up in Pacific Grove, California. So, speaking of tradition, Tevye and his tradition, the Asilomar conference has been a 50-plus some year tradition of Centers for Spiritual Living, where the attendees have the opportunity to listen to some really inspiring speakers, listen to some really talented musical performances, attend workshops, engage in spiritual practices, and immerse themselves in the natural beauty of the grounds. Well, there was one talk given, I believe it was day 2 of the conference, and this was being given by a young new minister, and by young I mean someone who looked younger than 40. In his talk, he was addressing the relevance of science and mind philosophy, and he was telling us it's okay to be uncomfortable with growth and change. And he shared his opinion that perhaps and when he said our, I don't think he necessarily meant our as the individual, as much as it was our as the organization, Centers for Spiritual Living as a whole. But he shared that perhaps our being attached to the writings of Ernest Holmes might be us clinging to the past, and that these writings of Ernest Holmes might not be as meaningful to younger people today. This young minister then posed the question for the audience: what would Ernest Holmes write today? And then he ended with the provocative question, what will you write? Well, with a furrowed brow and a what I believe remained silent, I questioned whether he had ever heard of Chesterton's fence. One of the retreat's musicians was Harold Payne, and I think most of us are familiar with Harold Payne. He's been here several times. And after this minister finished speaking, I so hoped that Harold would play his song, Standing on the Shoulders. And in case you're not familiar with the song's message, let's listen to a few of the key lyrics.
am standing on the shoulders of those who've gone before me, yeah. And I am following the footsteps of those who led the way. Oh, I am standing on the shoulders of those who've gone before me, yeah. And I am following the footsteps of those who led the way, yeah.
It would have been so perfect, but he didn't perform it. I'm standing on the shoulders of those who've gone before me. I'm following in the footsteps of those who've led the way. And he's referring to the great ones. And he goes on in the song, and he mentions some great ones by the name of Jesus, Gandhi, Mother Teresa, Martin Luther King. So it isn't a question of that we should never question the great ones, what they've accomplished, or reevaluate their lives, or reassess whether their methodology applies to our present day lives. But I do believe in giving credit where credit is due. And I do believe that we build on the success and successes of those who've gone before us. Evolution is a process of awakening. It's a process of unfolding. It's a process of growth. Thomas Troward says that evolution is the great cosmic forward movement. Sometimes we've described it as that spiral upward. In the process of evolution, we do not curse or condemn an earlier stage in this process. The strength of the tallest skyscraper ever built is dependent upon its foundation. The first slide, please. There we go. Every rung of the ladder is necessary in our upward climb. Everything, every step that I've ever taken in the process, in the evolutionary process of my life, has brought me to where I am today, has brought me to who I am today, the good and the not so good. So here's my answer to this young minister's question of what would Ernest Holmes write today? He'd write the same teaching. We humans have yet to demonstrate that we have mastered what Ernest Holmes taught. Ernest Holmes taught a spiritual philosophy with a methodology that was results-oriented in the here and now. He didn't teach a philosophy that had promises for the hereafter. He taught a practical spirituality for us to apply to our lives so that we could experience heaven on earth now. In comparing science and mind philosophy to other religions and other philosophies, these are 4 key points that I find. Didn't find this in a book, but it's just my opinion now. He had his, I have mine. I believe that there are 4 key points to the science of mind teaching, and that each one of us can grade ourselves on how well we feel that we're doing in applying this particular point in our lives. So there we go, first one. Key point number 1 is for us to know that God is all there is. Science and mind teaches us that there is no duality. There's no God and an opposing evil force. There's only one source, one life, one love, one power, and it is all God. When we grade ourselves when we grade ourselves on this key point number 1, we need to take a look at how much we judge, reject, and maybe even condemn others. And by others, I mean other people, other lifestyles, other religions, other philosophies, other systems of economy, socialism and capitalism. And dare I say it, other political parties. progressives, conservatives? Do we have a perspective of it's us versus them? Next slide, please. 16 years ago, when I was serving in the youth center on Sundays, and we were teaching the children the 5 steps in prayer, the 5 steps in spiritual mind treatment. And we had gestures that went along with each step to help to drive it home and help them remember. So the first step, which was also the key point number 1 in my book, is God is all there is. Key point number 2, which is also the second step in spiritual mind treatment, God and I are one. So there's not a God up in the sky. We do not pray to God separate or removed from us. I am created in the image and likeness of God, and being one with God, I'm here to reenact God. I'm here to show up and be God. I'm here to be godlike in my thoughts, in my words, and in my actions. How are we doing on this one? I won't ask for a show of hands. Self-grading. All right, next slide, please. So we have God is all there is. God and I are one. The third step is us understanding how God creates. Science of Mind teaches that there are 2 aspects of God. There is love and law. Love selects, chooses, points the way. The law is what makes it happen. We as individuals use the same creative process, the same methodology in creating our life as God uses in creating the universe. The only difference is in the degree. So we teach thoughts. This was the third step that we taught. Thoughts become things. So what I believe is what I receive. Next key point. Do it. Nike isn't the only one preaching walk the talk. Take it out of the realm of theory and talking about it and speculating and put it into practice. Do it. So that's the key point of Science of Mind, is applying the philosophy. Once we understand the how to create, then we take responsibility for our thoughts. We take responsibility for our emotions. We gain competence in consciously directing the law. We become skilled manifestors in creating the life that we desire. We're all endowed with free will. We can use the law wisely, or we can misuse it. So what is it that makes me think that Ernest Holmes would write and teach the same philosophy today as he wrote during his lifetime up until his death in 1960? Because I've witnessed and I continue to observe that we humans, me too, I'm not excluded from this, that we humans still spend so much time and energy fighting effects, what is out there, tearing down fences, doing battle with life out there. And we forget or we disregard what Science of Mind teaches us, that there is a mental cause for every effect. What I believe is what I receive. So instead of messing with the effect, I would do better to redirect my energy and my attention back to cause. What is the mental cause that brought that fence to be? That fence that I now want to tear down. If God is all there is, can I see God right there? Right there in the midst of that fence? Or am I so focused on the dirty bathwater, on what I want to get rid of, that I've lost sight of the baby? I've lost sight of the good. I've lost sight of God right there. Don't throw out the baby with the bathwater. So I will close today, the last slide, with a quote from the Sufi mystic and poet Rumi, who lived in the 1200s. Yesterday I was clever, so I wanted to change the world. Today I am wise, so I am changing myself. So let's just take this idea into prayer, and knowing that God is all there is, that there is the one life, there is the one power, there's the one love. And I am created in the image and likeness of God. I am this divine showing up, made manifest as me. I am that perfect spark of divinity. The truth of me is that exactly as God saw me, as God created, that I am. I am perfection. I am whole. But my physical eyesight may have lost sight and sees the defect or sees what's blocking that perfection, what's hiding it. But I know, being one with God, I choose today, I claim, I use my spiritual vision, and I see through anything that is unlike God. I see through it to that spark of divinity, to that core of perfection that can never be destroyed, defiled, or desecrated. So in every situation, in any challenge or concern, I see past the effect. I go back to cause. I go back to purpose. And I know that as I change my thinking, as I realign with the truth, as I realign with all that God is, the beauty, the joy, the peace, the harmony, the perfect order, I can recreate this situation, this circumstance, this relationship. I can bring about change. Because I know who I am. I remember the truth of myself. I know how to create anew. So one with God, all things are possible. I claim my sovereignty. I take dominion over circumstances, over effects. I rise above it. And I am filled with joy. I am filled with gladness. I'm filled with thanksgiving that I now remember the truth of who I am, that I recognize my power, the power of my spoken word. I choose wisely. I choose along in alignment with the nature of God. I choose with love. So the little me of myself lets go, unclenches, ceases to effort and strain, and just leans into the process, leans into this divine embrace that carries me, that lifts me, that advances me. And one with God, I let go, I turn it over and let God, and I declare, and so it is. Thank you. So now is our opportunity to give, to put our energy and our effort towards constructively uplifting and bringing about that which is good, to expand on the good. So I'm going to ask you now if you would just take your gift, and we have it up there, and if you'll join me in saying, divine love consecrates my gift. It goes forth to heal, to bless, and to prosper all those who give and all those who receive. I rejoice in the sharing of my good, and I release my gift with love. So it is. Here we go, baby. Thank you. I'll take off my glasses because you see I don't need my physical eyesight. I use my spiritual vision. So at this point in time, on the midweek service, we have opportunity, questions, concerns, comments, anything about what I just shared, or a request, if there's a need that you're having right now that you want to request prayer. Grant's got the mic.
It's not a prayer, I just had a wonder, because I know Easter's coming up, and I wonder about the point of view of science of mind. I know it's considered a rebirth, and I wonder if you can expand on that a little bit.
Well, if I do, then you won't come on Sunday when these wise ministers, exactly what I hear, they're going to be addressing the metaphysical meaning and representation. But yes, exactly along that line, that there is that idea of the renewal and the rebirth and rising up out of what appears dead or broken and creating anew. So yes, that's in a nutshell what we celebrate for Easter. And again, it's that Christ consciousness. Jesus is the man. Christ consciousness is what Jesus, the man, demonstrated that each one of us is seeking. To have that Christ consciousness, which is that I am a child of God. I am created out of all that is divine. I am one with God. And therefore, looking at the Christ consciousness that Jesus demonstrated, what each one of us is capable of creating when we are in alignment with that. Does that help? Is that a little teaser? Because otherwise, I'm going to bring up one, or well, there's two here, aren't there? There's two ministers, and I'm just going to have them give you a preview of what they're going to say on Sunday. You have to show up on Sunday. Anyone else? All right, so got all the answers, do you? Let's go meet. All right, any prayer requests? Are we gonna go have an early lunch, or? All right, you guys are brilliant. Thank you so much for coming today. It makes it so much nicer to have an audience when you're speaking. Have a great day, you guys.